There's a tiny feature on almost every disposable coffee lid that millions of people look at every day without ever questioning why it's there. It's so small that most people assume it's simply part of the manufacturing process or an insignificant design detail. But despite its size, that little opening plays a surprisingly important role every time you take a sip. In fact, it quietly solves several problems that would otherwise make drinking hot coffee much less convenient. It's a perfect example of how great design often hides in plain sight, working so well that we barely notice it. So, why is there a tiny hole on coffee cup lids? Today we're uncovering the surprisingly clever answer and the simple science behind it, right here, on History of Simple Things. The tiny hole's most important job is to act as an air vent. Whenever you take a sip, coffee leaves the cup, creating empty space inside. That space needs to be replaced by air, otherwise the cup would begin to form a partial vacuum. As the pressure inside drops, the coffee has a harder time flowing smoothly through the drinking opening. Instead of a steady stream, the liquid would hesitate before suddenly rushing forward. The vent solves this problem by allowing outside air to enter as coffee leaves the cup, keeping the pressure balanced. It's the same principle that makes pouring juice from a carton much smoother after opening a second flap. Thanks to that tiny hole, every sip feels controlled, predictable, and comfortable instead of awkward and inconsistent. The vent also makes the lid much less likely to spill your drink. At first glance, adding another opening might seem like it would increase the chances of leaking, but the opposite is actually true. When air can't enter the cup smoothly, it pushes back against the liquid, creating the familiar glugging effect. Instead of flowing steadily, coffee comes out in sudden bursts that are much harder to control. Those unpredictable surges can easily splash onto your hands, your clothes, or your car's interior. By continuously letting fresh air into the cup, the tiny vent keeps the liquid flowing at a more even rate. That smoother movement makes drinking while walking, driving, or carrying your coffee noticeably easier and helps reduce messy accidents without you ever realizing why. Freshly brewed coffee isn't just hot, it constantly releases steam. As that steam rises beneath the lid, it gradually increases the air pressure inside the cup. If there were no vent at all, that pressure could force coffee toward the drinking opening or slightly lift parts of the lid, making small but unpleasant splashes more likely. The tiny hole provides a controlled path for excess air and steam to escape, helping keep the pressure inside the cup more stable. While it isn't specifically designed as a pressure release valve, it still performs that function to a useful degree during normal use. The result is a drinking experience that feels calmer and more predictable, especially during those first few minutes when your coffee is at its hottest. The tiny hole is useful even before you take your first sip. Disposable coffee lids are designed to snap tightly onto paper cups to create a secure seal that helps prevent leaks during transport. Without any way for air to move, lifting the lid could create a stronger vacuum between the lid and the cup, making it noticeably harder to remove. The vent allows air to enter as the seal is broken, reducing that suction effect and making the lid come off with less effort. Most people never notice this because the process feels completely natural. But like many well-engineered features, its success comes from quietly solving a problem before you ever realize it exists. Although its everyday purpose is ventilation, the tiny hole can also play a role during manufacturing, depending on the lid's design. Most disposable coffee lids are made through injection molding, a process in which molten plastic is forced into precision molds under high pressure. Some manufacturers incorporate tiny openings or molded features that help plastic fill the mold evenly, improve consistency, or support automated quality inspection after production. These details vary from one company to another, so not every lid uses the opening in exactly the same way. However, regardless of how it's made, the feature still serves the practical purpose consumers experience every day, helping the lid function more smoothly during normal use. The tiny vent is a perfect reminder that good engineering isn't always obvious. Disposable coffee lids have to meet several demands at the same time. They need to fit securely, minimize spills, retain heat, remain inexpensive to produce, and still let people drink comfortably whether they're sitting at a desk, walking down the street, or commuting to work. Solving all of those challenges doesn't require complicated technology. Sometimes it only takes a carefully placed opening a few millimeters wide. That tiny hole improves the experience in multiple ways without adding moving parts, increasing manufacturing costs, or making the lid more difficult to produce. It's a small detail that delivers benefits far beyond its size. The next time you pick up a takeaway coffee, you'll probably notice that tiny hole in the lid a little differently. What once looked like an insignificant piece of plastic is actually the result of thoughtful design, practical engineering, and a basic understanding of how air and liquids behave. It serves as a reminder that the objects we use every day are often filled with clever solutions hiding in plain sight. The best designs rarely call attention to themselves because they simply work, making life a little easier without demanding recognition. Sometimes, the smallest feature on an everyday object tells the biggest story about human ingenuity, and that's exactly what makes the simplest thing so fascinating. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.